Thanks. Right, just under 6 months to go until the referendum on independence for Scotland. And although the polls still put the Unionists in the lead, some of them, the Nationalist Yes campaign are gaining ground. Despite big Unionist interventions on the currency, Europe and business, the Nationalists seem to be waging the more successful and positive campaign street by street and town by town, and the polls are closing. The former Labour Chancellor, Alistair Darling, is running the Better Together campaign. Good morning, Mr Darling. As the Sunday Times confirms this morning,
good morning.
Week by week, month by month, you are losing this argument, aren't you?
No, the polls don't show that at all. I mean, if you take today's poll, which has always been something of an outlier in Scottish polls, and you look at the change from this month to last month, it hasn't changed one bit. Our lead is exactly the same. And, you know, slightly contrary to what you were just saying a moment ago, every single poll conducted this year and in last year as well shows us with a consistent lead. And if you look at the polls over the last, since the beginning of this year, some of them show our lead increasing, some of them show a slight movement towards the nationalists. But I do think you need to get this in perspective. The majority of people in Scotland are against independence. I believe we will win this, provided we get across our arguments about the benefits of the UK to Scotland, and we make our argument strongly. We will win this argument. But you need to get these polls in perspective. Well, this one today is an outlier, and actually, if you look at it, it's not changed a jot since the last time they polled.
Respective psephologists like Professor John Curtis at Glasgow are also saying that things are narrowing, the Yes campaign is gaining ground, and they feel that you're losing the argument. Are they wrong as well?
No.
Or is he wrong specifically?
John Curtis is a respective pollster. Some polls have shown some tightening, and, you know, for heaven's sake, you know, there's 6 months to go here. There's bound to be polls will move around. I just wish we sometimes got the same attention directed to the polls where our lead actually increased. But, you know, the opinion polls are an approximate guide. There's a usual caveats of buckets of salt should be poured upon all of these things. I just believe that we will win this argument, provided we can continue to get our arguments across. There is a very strong, powerful case for staying part of the UK in terms of jobs, in terms of opportunities, in terms of the ability of us in Scotland as a country to improve people's standard of living, to make sure we have a fair and just society. We have strong bonds of culture, of kinship, of family, a shared history of 300 years. There are powerful cases, a powerful case for staying in the UK to be made, and we will continue to make it. Actually, the negativity, which you referred to in your introduction, is largely coming from the nationalists, who in the last week alone, when anyone speaks out against them, they monster them. We had a businessman earlier in the week who said that he thought staying in the UK was good for his business. The behaviour towards him was disgraceful. You know, it brought shame on Scotland. Equally, the CBI was monstered when they appeared before a committee in the Scottish Parliament. We're the ones who are being positive about the case for the United Kingdom. Well, the nationalists are consistently negative and consistently will do anything to shout down anyone who speaks out against them.
The argument being made against you on that argument is that what you're really doing again and again is warning Scots they can't have this, they can't have that, of the dangers of independence, rather than making a really positive and enthusiastic case for staying British, a case for Britishness, if you like. Do you think there needs to be some kind of change of tone?
Look, I've made it clear right from the start that we will make a very strong positive case of the sort I've just been outlining as to why it is in Scotland's best interest to be part of something bigger. In many ways, the best of both worlds, where we have a strong, devolved Scottish Parliament with powers over things like health and education, but also we recognise it's in the interests of us all, and Scottish firms and businesses in particular, to be able to have ready, unimpeded access right across the UK. No regulatory difficulties, no currency difficulties or anything like that. And actually, if you look at the people who have been most vociferous, really in the last couple of months or so, about, if you like, the disadvantages of breakup, of separation, it's not been our campaign, it's been Scottish businesses. People like Standard Life, one of the largest pension companies in Europe, who point out that 90% of their customers happen to live in the rest of the UK, and they're extremely worried about the consequences of putting a barrier between them and their customers. So we will make the positive case, but no, nothing would please the nationalists more this morning if I said, look, we're not going to ask any more hard questions again. When we asked questions about membership of the European Union, they claimed they had a legal opinion which said it would be okay. What happened? It turned out it didn't exist. What they were saying is simply not true. Equally, in relation to the currency, even their own people are saying what they want is, to quote, nonsense on stilts. You know, this is a campaign where we are talking about not just the future of Scotland, we're talking about the future of the United Kingdom. So yes, I will continue to be positive about this, because I believe passionately about it, but I'm not going to be put off asking questions which sometimes make the nationalists distinctly uncomfortable, which is why they don't want me to be asking these questions.
When are we going to hear from Labour in detail about your proposals for more devolution if the vote goes no?
Well, you did. A couple of weeks ago, the Labour Party published proposals in relation to further devolution. The Liberals have done it earlier this year, and the Tories are publishing something, I think, in May. You know, what is clear is, you know, right from the time that the Scottish Parliament was established in 1999, the settlement has moved on, and indeed next year, in 2016, the Scottish Parliament will, for the first time, be obliged to set an income tax rate. So it has the power to spend money, but equally important, it has the power, it is a responsibility of raising money. Now, all the parties are saying, look, there's other things you can do. In our case, you know, devolving more responsibility in relation to housing benefit, you know, something you're about to discuss, I think, with Ian Duncan-Smith. It makes sense to link housing benefit with housing policy, which is already devolved, equally in relation to the work programme and other measures too. So, yes, that process will go on, but the point is, it benefits Scotland to have that strong, powerful Scottish Parliament, but it also benefits us to be part of the UK. Again, it's a positive case, and one that needs to be made again and again. And as I say, the majority of people in Scotland are just simply not persuaded by the nationalist argument. They do see the advantages of being part of something bigger, and that's very important.
There was a very interesting change made to the Finance Bill, number 2 Finance Bill, last week, which allowed for a variation in tax rates in Scotland and has been interpreted as a major move by the government to allow much more variation on tax by the Scottish Parliament in the future. Is that the kind of thing that you're expecting? Did you know about that? And can you explain it to us?
Well, look, I think there was rather quite a lot of over-interpretation of what I think was a fairly minor matter. But the Scottish, as you know, the Scottish Parliament has had the power to vary the income tax rate since it was set up. It's never been used. You know, I think only once did a political party campaign on increasing tax, and it lost rather badly. The proposals I was just referring to, which are the biggest single change to the entire settlement, if you like, the power to actually, and the responsibility to fix the income tax rate, that's coming through. You know, the changes in the finance bill that you're talking about are rather more technical than that. But, you know, the big thing is that most people in Scotland want to see a powerful Scottish Parliament, and that's what they're going to get. But it works because, as I say, we also have the advantages of being part of the UK. That's something bigger, as well as, of course, the things we haven't talked about this morning, the non-economic arguments, if you like, you know, that shared identity, that shared history, and above all, the opportunity to do something better for people in Scotland as well as people in the UK.
Fine. Can I just turn to one final matter, which is, this has been a very, as we've just been hearing, divisive issue in Scotland. There's been a lot of hot tempers raised and a lot of sore things said by people to each other. The SNP are now talking in private, clearly, according to Scotland on Sunday, about a post-devolution agreement, a post-independence agreement on devolution and so forth. Do you think it's going to be possible for tempers to settle and Scotland to bind itself back together again, whatever the result, yes or no, after the referendum?
Well, I certainly hope so, because nothing is more likely to turn people off than the sight of politicians squabbling with each other. And that's what distressed me about what was happening last week in Scotland, where members of the public, not politicians, were being monstered. Now, that's got to stop. The eyes of the world are on Scotland for the next 6 months, and it shames Scotland when they see that. You know, whether you talk about further devolution, I mean, you know, sadly, you know, when we set up the Scottish Parliament with the Constitutional Convention and in relation to the proposals in relation to tax, the one party that wouldn't cooperate was the Nationalists. Now, if they're willing to cooperate, that's good. But, you know, first of all, we have to decide as a nation whether or not we are staying part of the UK. I believe that we, as I said, we will win that argument. After that, there will be further discussions, and it would be to the good of Scotland if people did work together, rather than indulging in, name-calling, shouting, personal abuse and so on. That's got no part in a civilised society. So I hope, yes, things do calm down, because I think the entire nation, the entire country will benefit from that.
Mr Darling, I've never heard you quite so fired up. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning.